Strangers by Belle Burden is a memoir about marriage and the devastating end of Belle's 20-year marriage in a single night. Belle writes in her book that the speed of our ending and the speed of our beginning felt like matching bookends. They both came out of nowhere. He wanted it, he wanted me, and then he didn't. I will say I absolutely loved reading this book. It was so captivating that I finished it in a day. Belle Burden is a really good writer, and with so much discourse online around this book, I feel compelled to talk about it. One thing to keep in mind though, this book is very waspy. It's about the top 1% of wealthy American women, and that perspective shapes much of the story. But don't let it put you off. And also don't let what you see online, the comments online as well, to deter you from reading it. I believe that there are lessons in this memoir that both men and women can learn from. As always, this is just a book review. I'm not here to criticize the author's personal life or blame anybody. I will try to keep this as neutral as possible. I'll be breaking the review into 4 parts. First, we'll go through the story, then we'll talk about the major themes, discuss the characters a bit, and finally, I'll read you some of my favorite scenes from the book. Alright, without wasting any much of your time, let's begin. The book is set in March 2020, right in the early days of the COVID pandemic. Belle and her family are staying at Martha's Vineyard, her husband, and 2 of their 3 children. The girls are with them, but their son Finn is staying with a family friend, and because of the pandemic, he can't come home. So there they are about to make dinner when Belle gets a text from an unknown number. It's from a man who's basically saying that her husband and his wife are having an affair and that it's been going on for a while. Belle immediately confronts her husband James, and by the way, James is a pseudonym. She has not used his real name in the novel, demanding an explanation. And what he says next is shocking. He doesn't deny it, and what makes this even worse is that before she's had time to process everything, the next morning, as early as 6 a.m., he tells her that he wants a divorce. And not only that, he says that she can have the house, she can have the kids. He doesn't want any of it, and he's leaving. And so he walks out of the house, takes the first ferry back to New York, and just leaves. And you have to remember that this is in the middle of COVID, so movement is restricted and contact with people is also restricted. So Belle is in a vulnerable situation where she can't go to her family to talk about what has just happened to her. So she's stuck at home with the children alone. But this is just where the book starts. I think we need to go back to the very beginning in order to get some scope of who they are and how they got here. Now, Belle comes from old money, like generational inheritance level wealth kind of money. Her father was Carter Burden, a great-grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the richest American families of his era. Her mom was the daughter of Babe Paley, a well-known American socialite who married into serious money. Belle and James met at work, and their love story was a classic office romance. They were both lawyers at the same firm and were introduced through a mutual friend. The chemistry was instant, but at the time they were both seeing other people and couldn't act on their attraction to one another. Another thing you need to know is that the timing of when they met matters, because Belle had just lost her father. And I think that this is a really important detail that many readers don't look at carefully. I find myself wondering that if Belle's father hadn't died the way he did, and if her previous boyfriend wasn't such a deadbeat, would she have entertained James the way she did? My take on this is that the sudden loss of her dad left a void, and for whatever reason, James stepped right into it. Belle herself writes that James resembled her father physically, though with key differences that made her feel such a pull towards him. And after just 3 months of dating, they decide to get married. And I know some of you are going to say you can never really know a person, even if you date them for years. But if you haven't read the book, which I think you should, those 3 months felt like a classic case of love bombing. Belle says in her memoir that every single day, every interaction felt intensely romantic and passionate. Here's another important detail. Belle and James were not walking into this marriage on equal financial footing. James's family used to be wealthy. They went from attending the best private schools, going on summer holidays, and living in nice apartments to not having enough to cover their basic needs after his dad lost his job. That shift from privilege to financial instability was going to affect their marriage in many ways neither of them probably anticipated. So, because Belle's family has this kind of wealth that comes with safeguards, a prenup is expected. And this is pretty normal for them because her brother, that is Belle's brother, had signed one when he got married, and the family expects Belle to do the same. However, Belle is anxious about bringing it up. She's scared that this development might derail the wedding, so she stalls and keeps stalling. And when she finally brings it up with James, he doesn't take it well. He says that expecting him to sign a prenup makes him feel like an outsider. Lol. This is where I need you to remember something because this decision comes back to haunt Belle 20 years later. 3 weeks before their wedding, with the lawyers pressuring Belle to get the prenup signed, James asked to amend the prenup. The original terms of the agreement would split anything earned during the marriage. However, the amendment James proposes changes that only assets placed in joint names would be split. This is not a favorable agreement at all, but somehow he manages to convince Belle, who is also a lawyer, and she decides to tell her family lawyer to amend prenup. So when she calls her family lawyer to tell him about the idea, she doesn't tell the lawyer that James is there, and she puts the lawyer on speakerphone. And he immediately tells her that he thinks this is a bad idea and that it isn't fair. But Belle pressures him, and he reluctantly agrees to it, saying that if this is what she wants, he'll do it. I want you to sit with this for a moment. A lawyer going against her own legal counsel for love. They signed the prenup on May 30th, and on June 5th, they get married. After they marry, Belle wants to start a family. She wants to be a mom, and gradually she steps back from her career to focus on their family. James leaves the firm where they met and goes to work for Belle's uncle, where his career kicks off, until that firm is acquired and he moves to a private equity firm, moving on to become a partner. According to Belle, their marriage was good, and in the 2 decades she was married to James, she never sensed that anything was wrong or suspected that he had fallen out of love with her and was being unfaithful. As James' career grew, the emotional burden of raising kids quietly shifted entirely onto Belle. He subtly but seriously stopped helping the children do homework. He stopped changing diapers. He stopped being a hands-on father in general, only handling the financial responsibilities like taxes, phone bills, that sort of thing. It is also worth mentioning that for a significant amount of time, it was actually Susan, Belle's stepmom, who was covering the children's school fees. In 2012, Belle, who had actively stopped paid employment and was only taking on pro bono cases, received an offer from a friend for a position at a large foundation. She was interested, but when she told James about it, he quickly shut the idea down, saying she needed to be home for the kids. And while she resented him for not encouraging her, she decided that at the time, prioritizing his career was what was best for their family. Around the same period, she had emptied her 2 trust funds to help their family purchase their homes, one in Tribeca and the second on Martha's Vineyard, where James would end up leaving her. She had also listed James as a joint owner on the deeds, even though he contributed nothing to the purchase. Now, I'm not excusing her financial ignorance, nor am I saying that this is what she should have done, but I think that Belle's fear of money conversations was tied a lot to her father's death, because as we read in the book, when he passed, her family discovered that he had left behind a 40 million debt. That kind of shock leaves a mark, and for Belle, it seems it had translated into a deep discomfort with engaging in financial matters altogether. The next time we see James is a few weeks later. After James has walked out on his family, Belle has a complete meltdown, as is expected. She texts her stepmother Susan, her mother, her brother, his family. She tells anyone who is willing to listen. She tries repeatedly to reach James, but he ignores her. That is until she contacts his boss, a mutual friend of theirs, who lends James his seaplane to come back to Martha's Vineyard so they can break the news of their divorce to their children together. When James arrives, he acts totally like a different person. He tries to rush through the conversation about the divorce, and he doesn't really face the children. Before he leaves, he goes down to the basement and starts scattering boxes. He's rummaging through notebooks and empty files, clearly looking for something. He's looking for the prenup, by the way, if you didn't guess. So he's looking for the prenup, but he can't find it. And Belle knows this because in his absence, she had also gone looking for it. And this is where we find out that the prenup is missing. In the final chapters of the book, Belle walks us through the divorce proceedings, how the amendment she had innocently agreed to in the past comes back to haunt her. Her choice to go against legal advice keeps her awake at night because she realizes that she might have to sell their home or buy it out from James. When the financial statements are exchanged, she is shocked by how much James had accumulated over the years in bonuses, in income, and in investments. She's ashamed because he never hid any of it from her. She simply hadn't been paying attention. She had completely removed herself from their financial life, that she didn't know what was happening in her own home. There is no use crying over spilled milk, and Belle knows this. She is worse off than she started in terms of their prenup, which is not advantageous to her in any way because she stopped working. And even when she told James about nullifying the prenup and amending it, he had brushed her idea away, and they never really got around to doing it. So it is at this time she opens up to her family about the amendment she had agreed to 20 years ago. They are shocked. They can't believe it. That's I said, well, they can't believe it. But what she can hope for at this point is that James agrees to settle rather than go to trial. In the end, James does settle, but just an hour before the trial. By his terms, he agrees to cover child support, the children's tuition, and their medical expenses. 4 months after walking out of their family home, the divorce is finalized, and Belle is now a divorcee. Post-divorce, Belle tells us of her process of rebuilding what she has left. She takes writing classes, starts a new routine, and she continues to go to the country club on Martha's Vineyard. But she doesn't really like being there because the men try to make a joke out of her divorce. Some of the women feel sympathetic towards James, but she tries not to let these things get to her. The writing class was a coping mechanism, a way of processing everything and retelling the story of her marriage in order to look back on signs she may have missed. And she would eventually go on to submit her essay on her marriage on the Modern Love podcast. And this essay is what ultimately led to the memoir we are discussing today. That was heavy. So what is this memoir about? One of the themes that this memoir discusses is shame. And I know there's a lot of discourse online about how bad a man James was. And I do agree with that wholeheartedly. I think what he did was terrible. And somehow, I think maybe this was his plan all along, to make her fall in love with him and to use her for her connections and discard her when the relationship wasn't valuable to him any longer. But I also think that James was a man who couldn't face his shame. The ability to say I was wrong and to take accountability for his actions is something that he never did throughout this book. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but Belle herself tried to cover his shame a lot. She softened things for him, she massaged his pride, she covered for him. And we see women do this in relationships all the time. The avoidance of shame made him not take accountability up until the last minute. Another parallel to this would be Belle, who was ashamed of loving a man who walked out on his family. She was ashamed that she was going to be seen as a scorned woman, as a divorcee, and as someone who had failed her marriage. And this was really crazy to me because she was the one who was betrayed. She was the one who was manipulated, and she had nothing to be ashamed of. But for some reason, she was anxious and she was feeling so disappointed in herself that she carried the burden of the shame of their divorce everywhere she went. Another theme in this book is financial apathy and financial abuse. So if I had to pull one lesson from Belle's story, it would be always keep your own money. Whether you're a man, a woman, a student, always have a financial buffer that belongs entirely to you. Belle is very candid in this book about her financial decisions and the regrets that came with them. I mean, if it all worked out, she would never have to write the story, and she would never have had to learn the hard way the cost of handing over your financial independence to someone else, even when that someone is the person you love the most. As humans, I think we're all fallible, and even if it wasn't her husband, there's just this sea finish that tends to pop up when someone knows they have a hold on you and you can't really do anything without them. And the financial abuse piece of the story is made even more striking by the fact that Belle had every advantage. As someone who had the type of wealth that she had, and with that, even the safeguards that came with it, she had resources that most people could only dream of. And she still ended up in a position where her husband had all the leverage in their relationship and in their divorce. That's how terrible financial apathy can be. The third thing would be family ties. Another theme that the book hammers on is family. I believe that having family and friends backing her up was the only thing that kept Belle grounded and kept her sane during what was clearly the most destabilizing period of her life. I think this is also a reminder of how important it is to be open with your family before entering something as serious as marriage. Where I come from, it is said that marriage is not just a union between two people, it is a union between two families, and your family will almost always choose you. James's family chose to side with him despite the cheating, despite the lack of accountability, despite the fact that he coldly walked out on his own children. There's a quote I came across from a psychologist, I think her name is Jane Meg, and she says that marriage is the only relationship where you get to choose your family. So choose wisely. Like, every relationship is risky inherently, and the number of years you spend dating a person doesn't really equate to having a successful marriage. But what I'm trying to say is ask the hard questions. Listen to the people who love you, because when you're in the relationship, you may not be able to spot the red flags that easily. The other theme I would want to talk about is legacies and breaking patterns. And this thing might not resonate with everybody, but I think it's worth mentioning. Belle notes that in her family, the women had a history of unfaithful partners, both her mother and her grandmother, and she herself. And because of this, she felt a deep sense of shame when she found herself repeating the same pattern. I think this is also why she held Susan, her father's wife, in such high regard, because she describes in the book that Susan and her dad's relationship were a model marriage for her. and she looked up to them. Do I think that pattern in her family of infidelity may have created blind spots when she chose James as a partner? Maybe, but I'm only speculating. And then there's James' side of the story. The author mentions rumors that his father had, in fact, in the same cold and detached way, abandoned his mother and their family when James was a young boy, only to return years later, at which point his mother filed for divorce. I believe a lot in patterns and like generational patterns because they can show up in very small ways, like in the way you love, in the way you handle conflict, in the way you relate with others. And I think it is something worth seeking help with. It could be spiritual help if you believe in God, or it could be going for therapy and going for sessions so that you don't find yourself repeating the past. Another theme that I will talk about, which is the last one, is marriage and identity. I'll say this as a woman myself. We sometimes attach much of our value to being in a relationship or partnership that it slowly becomes our whole identity. I believe that Belle loved being a mother, she loved being a wife, and she owned her narrative as a married woman. And when it didn't work out anymore, it was a huge blow to her self esteem. Marriage is a beautiful thing, but it should not be your whole identity. You should never lose yourself, your wants, your preferences, and your non negotiables just to hold a marriage or a relationship together. So always stay true to yourself, keep your hobbies, keep your friends, take time for self care, and put yourself first because men will always put themselves first. Now, I'm going to be talking about my favorite characters and my not so favorite characters. So, aside from our two main characters, who are Belle and James, I would like to give some spotlight to two side characters that I really liked. Number one would be Carter. Carter is Belle's older brother, and he is definitely the brother every younger sister deserves to have. He's protective without being overbearing. He's supportive without trying to control her life. When Belle decides to step away from her career after getting married, Carter immediately offers her a place at his company. Throughout the divorce proceedings, he is one of her biggest supporters. And you can tell because Belle even acknowledges him in her book. What really stood out to me here was just how worried he was when he found out about the prenup amendment. He was so concerned that even his friends noticed that something was wrong. Charmaine is so lucky. Another character I would like to talk about would be Susan. Belle doesn't talk about her mother nearly as much as she talks about her stepmom. And honestly, I can only assume that it is because they're incredibly close. Susan completely defies the wicked stepmother stereotype, and I loved it. As a family therapist, she's warm, compassionate, and deeply invested in the well being of her stepchildren, especially Belle. When James walks out on his family, she's the only person who confronts James about his actions and calls him out on his attitude to tell him that this isn't how you do things. As for my not so favorite character, if you haven't guessed yet, it would be James. And I think we can all agree that he was a dick, so that's all I have to say here. So for one of my favorite scenes in this book, and I'll be telling you only one, it would be Belle's interaction with her daughter Evie. So Evie had found out about her dad's cheating even before they told them about it. And in the middle of the night, Evie had sent a text to her mom that she knew that she had a lot on her plate and that she shouldn't worry about her. And it was such a first daughter move. My heart was melting. My heart was melting. Like Evie is so concerned for her mother and so concerned for the family. Like we see it that after their dad left, Evie takes up the cooking. She's cooking for her mom. She's making sure to check in on her and just making sure that her mom is fine. And she's really young at the time. Like she's not even 17 yet, but she is just trying to do her best to make sure that her mom can cope and I really loved it. I loved that scene so much. It was so wholesome and it had my heart. This book has a 4.2 rating on Goodreads, so the rating tells for itself that it's a book worth checking out. As I said before, Belle is a great writer and her publishing team did an even greater job. The book is one-sided, and while we never hear James's side of the story, we do know that she tried her best to not paint him as the scumbag that he really is. This book is for women of all ages, married, single, intending to be married. So in my humble opinion, please and please pick up Strangers. Ignore the online discourse about how she may have misrepresented the facts of her wealth and just engage with this book for what it is. A memoir on love and the betrayal of love. Looking back, were there signs Belle missed? Were there moments that hinted at who James really was? Or does hindsight just have a way of making everything look obvious? I hope you enjoyed listening to this review as much as I enjoyed talking about it. Please let me know in the comments what you think. And if you liked this video, please do well to hit the like button and consider subscribing so the algorithm recommends more of my videos. You can also watch another one that should pop up on your screen right about now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay blessed. Bye.